Hello, everyone. It's Donna Cravata, and we are here for another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we've got another great guest for you. There has never been a better time for women to put their stories into the world. That's not a trend, that's a truth. And my guest today has been building her work around that for years. Amy W. Vogel, and you're going to want to use that middle initial because there's more of them out there. Writes bold books for bold women and coaches them to write their bold brand centerpiece books. Her background is in sales, motherhood, and ministry, and it gives her a perspective on storytelling that's both strategic and deeply human. She believes that women's stories are the most powerful catalysts for cultural change, and she's made it her mission to make sure those stories get written. If you've been sitting on your story, or if you got one that's books out there that are kind of gathering dust, you're in the right place today because we're going to talk about all kinds of things books. So, Amy, welcome and happy to have you here.
Yes, I'm super excited. I mean, we've talked before, and then our chat pre-show.
Mhm.
This is super exciting, and I love talking to women who take storytelling seriously because it
Mhm.
is probably the most powerful thing we have to create change now and legacy later.
Yeah, and it's the thing that's not going to change regardless
Mhm.
of what happens with technology and the world and people.
Exactly.
Stories are the things that transcend it all.
Exactly. I love, we were talking a little bit earlier about AI. AI
Mhm.
can't tell us. I always say, people are ask me if I'm worried about AI taking my job, and I'm like, you think AI could come up with the chaos in this brain? It's not.
No, no. My response to that is not in my lifetime.
No,
After that, I
no.
don't care. Somebody
AI
else.
does not experience the roller coaster, the cascade of chemicals that happen when I'm writing a story. So no, absolutely not.
And then there's a remembering piece too. Like,
Mhm.
what's it going to remember? It doesn't have memories.
Right.
Like when
Yep,
I
it
work
has
with,
data, but data's not the same.
yeah, no, it's not. It can't be what we remember. It doesn't have a nervous system, and the things that we remember are related to our nervous system, good,
Yeah.
bad, or ugly.
Yes, absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
just
An
it can't,
embodied story. Yeah.
yeah, it can't replicate that. And like when I write with I tell it right up front, like don't even attempt to tell my stories. Like just give me frameworks,
Yeah.
make sure I'm not missing anything,
Yeah.
and then I fill that in because I don't want to rewrite the story that it made up about me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that I got to use human editors for that because they get the depth and the flavor that AI just can't.
Yeah.
Literally can't.
No, I had this conversation with somebody last week that she was going to outsource the editing of her book, and I was like, "Don't do that.
No.
You need to." She was going to, outsource it to an AI. I was like, "Don't do that."
No.
And she was going to buy something that was just for that. I was like, "Who built it?"
No.
She couldn't
Yeah.
answer. I said, "Don't do that."
Right. Find a reputable editor, somebody
Yeah.
you like. It's kind of like, although I would say editing is very much like finding a therapist. You might have to try a couple before
Yeah.
you find the right fit. I have
Mhm.
certainly, but they're
Personal.
going to bring so much to it that a machine just can't. Not that, and as we were talking, not that a machine can't be used
Yeah.
as a tool, but it does not replace the human brain.
It doesn't. And I think one of the most important skills that we can have right now is AI literacy and really understanding what these tools can do well, what they can't do well, when to when to enlist them and when not to. I mean, I really think when is the most important question.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. And, I always ask me, or I always have people ask me, when is the best time to start writing a book? I'm like, well, if you
Now.
can't sleep at night, if you're asking me that question, you already know the answer. It is now. It is right now because somebody in this world needs to be able to read your story because they're going to relate to it and they're going to not feel alone. It's going to literally change their brain chemistry. Our brains are wired for story. Really, really small studies, Stanford Business School they were doing a study on marketing, and they found that 22% of their participants remembered story more than factual information. And I mean, that was just a really small snippet. So I know that like the percentage of how our brain remembers story is much greater than that.
Yeah,
And
I
that was
mean,
only in the context of marketing. But think about it. Like when you are, if you think about the great advertising campaigns, they are built around a story.
mhm,
You go on a journey in 30 seconds.
all the heroes.
Social media, yes.
It's all the
It's
hero's journey,
exactly.
and even when you're remembering things in your own life,
Yeah.
like you remember the stories before you remember the other parts of it. You know, the
Yeah.
story triggers the other things, but the story is what you remember.
100%. And the story, the human body grabs onto things in a story. I love using this example because I played volleyball in high school. I'm very tall, and I played volleyball in high school. And when school was about to start, they had tryouts. And the first time I was walking into that gym, it was a brand new gym that was freshly painted. And so my brain can still recall that sensory information.
Mhm.
So when I smell fresh paint, and I'm 35 years away from that moment of walking into the gym to try out for my high school volleyball team, I'm instantly back there.
Yeah.
Every time I smell fresh paint or a gymnasium, those
Mhm.
are just two smells that are core memories that my body remembers, that my brain connection remembers. And I mean, we have so many of that.
Mhm.
And those are the things in story that pull you in. I always coach my clients on show versus tell, because
Mhm.
if you can show them using that sensory information, if you can evoke emotion and imagination in a way that's personally relevant, I mean, you're going to do a bang up job. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of practice though, because we're
Yeah.
used to explaining, but you got to take somebody into the moment.
Absolutely. I have similar experiences because I help people kind of incorporate their stories into their marketing, and most of the time they just don't remember.
Yeah.
They forgot. They
Yep.
forgot these things that they've done, and they put it aside for something else. And I take them through this process, and you can see them change right before your eyes, because
Yep.
they're having these experiences of reconnecting to these parts of themselves that formed
Mhm.
who they are now.
Yep.
But they had these gaps, and it creates gaps in their stories. Those gaps in their stories create gaps in their communication, and then people
Yep.
don't feel this person. So when they fill in those gaps and they knit together these stories, um, what happens is people start to feel them before they can hear or see them, and
Yeah.
that changes everything.
Absolutely. The somatic connection, the bodily
Mhm.
connection to that moment is stored in our cells.
Yeah,
And this is something I love, like in the last 10 or 15 years, that the field of psychology has really grasped,
yeah,
and how important it is to channel that in a healthy way. And storytelling is a beautiful way to do that. It's a beautiful way to move from that story being painful and your brain being stuck in that moment
yeah.
to getting a little space to where you are actually able to process what you went through. And
Mhm,
sometimes it takes a long time. And it is beautiful to see that transformation, because it's something you can witness
mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
And I tell every single person that I talk to about writing a book, like, just be careful, because it's therapy. You are not going to be the same person
I
when
I
you finish writing this book as when you started.
I have a list of therapists, trauma coaches,
Yeah.
somatic coaches,
Yeah.
hypnotists that I refer to, because I don't know how to take somebody through their trauma, and
Right.
if we go there, I won't leave them there.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but you have to know that,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
have to know that, and that only comes from doing the work.
Yep. And most people fear that, but it starts out with, will this book be good enough? That's really not the question. The question is, will I be seen? Will I be heard? Will people accept me? Those core needs. And it's not, will people accept this book, even though that's kind of the shiny layer on top. It's really not. It is just this idea that, am I good? Am I good enough? And I got a text from a client who's giving a huge keynote speech in Chicago this weekend, and we've been working on her book for almost a year now, and it's the pre-orders live, like we're moving forward, and she's freaking out. She was like, she's like, is this good enough? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm an Aries, so I don't work on crap. So yes. But her question really isn't, is the book good enough? It's, will this story connect? But also, I'm scared of who I'm becoming in telling this story and releasing it into the world, because it's very vulnerable. And that doesn't change. I mean, my 6th book will be out in September, and I've gone through that same process in writing this book. And it's interesting too, because you think, oh, it gets easier. The stories that I write, the books that I write, I have to embody them. I have to be able to channel the character that I'm writing about in order to make that connection. I know every writer has their own, but one of my favorite people to learn from is Sue Monk Kidd, and I finished her latest book, and she talks about that too. We go on that whole roller coaster every single time. And, people have termed it imposter syndrome, but that's not really what it is. I never feel like an imposter. I have such a burden that these stories reach the right people and that they're good enough to be read.
Well, you're embodying their experience.
Exactly.
And creating that character at the same time.
Exactly.
So that's, that's a difficult thing to do. And then it's, there's always going to be some reflection of who you are in that character. And like, what are you digging up that you're not even, that you have no even, you don't even have an idea of what you're digging up. It's coming up because you're in the work. And so it's coming from like every direction. And you need to hold that together. There's two parts, like the one part that you mentioned where, it's getting close to release, and it's like, oh my God, it's not just like 6 people looking at this anymore. Out in the world. And then there's that moment where you have to hand everything over to Amazon. And and there's no control after that point. It's like, that's like, jumping off the high dive, right?
Yeah.
Like you have absolutely no control. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Everything that you carefully planned for the last however long you carefully planned it is just all thrown up in the air for an undisclosed amount of time.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And, there are always going to be bumps in the road. The 2nd book I released, I did it, I self-published it. And the morning of the launch party, for whatever reason, Amazon took it down.
Yeah, I've had that happen too.
So it's one of those things where it's like, you never know, but it got restored. It got fixed. You have those panic moments. And I always tell everybody that it is very much when, people always say, isn't it scary to release a book into the world? The scariest part for me, like when you have a newborn, is letting that first person read it. When it comes time for a book to be released, it is like taking your child to kindergarten. That does get easier. The more kids you have, the more that you'll see them at the end of the day. But they begin their own journey because now a whole lot of other people are involved in it.
Yeah, and you're not involved in every aspect.
Kids. Yeah. So, I've been called a book doula for that reason. Yes, you birth it into the world. But the birthing is not when the book is released, not even remotely close. The birthing is that first draft.
First draft, yeah. It's so funny. I've always said that it's a birth, and like people. I mean, I've been working with authors on and off since like 2010. I
Mhm.
take breaks because I need, I just need breaks from working with authors. It's intense. And it's just, it's amazing that people will come with these. I signed up for this thing to write a book in a weekend. I'm like,
Oh God,
okay,
why?
okay.
You can't cook a baby in a weekend. Like, no, you have to
And
enjoy the
I mean,
process.
it happens when it happens. You
Yeah,
cannot put those deadlines on it, and
right.
like, don't even get involved with the publishing process until you got a really good first draft going.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Focus on building an audience first,
Yeah, you
and
can build the vision and you can
yeah,
build the strategy,
exactly,
but the
exactly.
execution of it,
Yeah, don't
you've
get
got to
into
make your
deadlines.
capacity and energy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't
stay
start
away
talking
from
about a book
stay,
before you got a draft. Like
yeah,
it just,
yeah, and a solid
yeah,
draft.
yeah,
Because anything related to publishing is just going to come with deadlines
yeah.
that you're not prepared for.
No, no. Well, and two, there is, and we talked about this too. We before we got on this call, we talked about how authors tend to focus solely on the book production.
Hmm.
When I talk about publishing a book, that's what I mean. The
Yeah,
writing, the cover design,
yeah,
those are the two parts of the process. The third thing that gets everybody is the promotional piece. What happens when you start to build your platform, like you said, and that
mhm,
happens, and it should happen way before the book ever comes out. But you do that in very strategic ways. You don't
mhm.
have to say you're writing a book, but you can start asking questions
Yeah,
about people's experience and what you're
mhm,
writing and the story you're telling. And so, it is a both and. It is, do
mhm.
not wait till the book comes out to start promoting your book. You are so far behind.
And nobody cares, right? Nobody
Right.
cares because so many people write books.
Yeah.
What makes them care is when you invite them to be part of your
Yes.
process. Now they're invested, and
Yep.
they're proud of what they have invested their time and their
Yeah.
energy and their brain and into. And if they had a contribution to that, if they got to name a character, if they got to weigh in
Mhm.
on a book design, if they
Yep.
got to, give an early review, those things really matter.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm about to give my readership community the choice of which book I start writing next because I have the
Mhm,
choice of two. I'm writing a
mhm,
series, and so
mhm,
which character do they want me to write next? And I'm prepared to do either one, but that way, like you say, yes, it is a well timed, well known business strategy to do that. It's very smart, but also it makes this journey a lot less lonely. Like if
yeah.
you're writing in isolation, oh, that's miserable. Oh, that's miserable.
And the feedback is invaluable because
Absolutely.
because you're writing it for them.
Yeah. 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 That's the other thing. People, your first draft is kind of for you. I will say
Yeah.
this next book coming out, my first draft was absolutely for me. And I didn't scrap it completely, but basically I had to the structure had to completely change. So the book that's going to be released is different, way, way different than that first draft that I wrote. But I still had to write that first draft. It was
Mhm.
for me, and then I got it out, and so I
Yeah.
could make the shift, so it could then be for the reader. But
And
that
that first
is a
draft,
process.
yeah, but that first draft is probably the framework for several
From
books
100%, one hundred
because
percent.
that's where you can see, okay, this goes in this book, this goes in the next one, this goes in the next one. That's
Yeah,
why you're at this crossroads right now where you can go in either direction
yeah,
because
yeah.
you have all of that mapped out
Absolutely.
to the
Absolutely.
point
And it
where it's
also
your
made,
book.
I struggled. I wrote that first draft in 9 months. It took me a
Mhm,
long, long time. But this rewrite, if you will, the second draft has taken me 4 months
mhm.
and I'm already into it. So it does get
On a
faster.
weekend? You didn't do it in a weekend?
Oh God, no. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to do it. And that just sounds miserable. It's miserable. No, I am typically, an hour to, if I hit about 90 minutes of writing, I'm about done. That is that's like, weightlifting. That's my max. Uh,
Mhm.
because I've gotten it out. like that creative energy is spent. Other people do it differently, but for me, I know that I've got maybe 2 hours. If I'm really on a tear, maybe 2 hours. I did write 10,000 words in my first fiction book. I wrote 10,000 words in one day, and I couldn't pick myself up off the floor for a couple days. I had, and you know, like I know that I just have to, I have to manage that. And so, you know, you can't control the creative process, but you can create structure to
Yes.
channel that energy. And so that's, you know, that's where coaching comes in, because
Mhm.
most people don't know what they don't know, especially when they're
Yeah.
writing their first book.
Yeah.
And again, don't do what I did and figure it out on your own. God, that's miserable. I would love to save people ever doing that again.
And this is the other thing I really wanted to touch on as well, because I think we could have a very interesting conversation from our various perspectives on this. Um, People don't factor in that this is a business
Yes.
until they have something up on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh God, I have a product to sell. Yeah, you always did.
Yeah, so like I don't really work on the fiction side of things, but I think it's an interesting conversation to talk about for fiction writers and also for people who are spiritual, who have a
Mhm.
really hard time monetizing this because
Yeah.
what they're sharing is really personal most of the time,
Yep.
and they have this almost an aversion to monetizing
Yeah.
their gifts. So
Yeah.
like, how do
Don't
you
get me started on that.
yeah,
That
how do you meet those challenges?
that religious programming was something I had to work through myself, because I
Yeah,
was in ministry for a long time. And that's what is reinforced. You give this away. You are in service to a higher power, so
yeah,
it's something you don't make money off of. And
mhm,
it is it is especially driven into women.
yes,
Just over and over again, you are to provide your labor for free,
mhm,
essentially. So for me, when I started my own business, I was already an author, and that was something. I had coaches along the way that just kept telling me, you need to raise your prices, you need to raise, you know, you need to do more with your books. I had people helping me, because the business of this is, you can help people, serve people, and make money at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're told the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, but yet we all have to have money to live. So, like, how do you?
yeah.
How
No,
do you?
the root of greed,
Yes,
not money.
exactly. So, it is one of those things where everybody has to go on their own journey with it. But if you stay clear on your why are you doing this?
Mhm,
Who are you here to serve? How is your book supposed to serve in the world? Well, people will see that value, and people pay for value.
mhm,
People pay for things that they value. Fans buy crazy gold foil sprayed edge editions of books they will never open because they are pretty and they want them to sit on their shelf because they value it. It means something to them. They will also buy a paperback copy so they can trash it and read it
mhm,
and like bend the spine and do all of that. So this idea of, you are not just out here selling a product. You're selling, you're not even selling, you're building connection and you're building a relationship. That is also the shift that I help
mhm,
people with,
yeah,
because it's not about selling. I was in sales for 10 years. And
mhm,
then I always joked when I went into ministry, I went from selling technology, because I was in tech sales, to Jesus when I was in church. But it's the same
but
kind of thing.
now you're selling invisible people.
Yeah, right. Now I'm telling stories. Okay, like it's all related in the background, um but my success as a sales rep was not because I was the best seller, that I could pitch and, as they
Mhm,
say, sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I was
mhm,
not good at that. What I was good at is what helps me be successful now. I was good at building relationships with people. How are your kids? How are you doing? How are you, how is this project going? Before I left, I left software sales in 2008. And when I announced, and I took a long leave, I wasn't, I took a long, like a quarter, because I was going to go home and stay with my kids, and we ended up moving overseas. But I told all of my customers and customers or potential customers that I had good relationships with. And I had 3 or 4 that pushed through purchase orders just so they could buy from me, because I had stayed with them the entire time. They had never bought anything from me at all. But before I left, they wanted to, because they valued the relationship we had, they wanted to help me. And I ended up having my best quarter. I sold, back then it was a big deal, but I sold over $1 million in software.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only because I focused on, and I think that's just me personally. I don't know that anybody really taught me that, but now it's not about just providing you information or providing you an e-course, or, how do you build a strategy? That's part and parcel of it, but it all goes back to my why, which you said at the top of this, is there is boldness that is needed in this world, whether that's in my stories or yours. And it needs to be grabbed on with both hands. And I want to help people do that in such a way that is fun, that doesn't rip your spine throughout.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just terrible. You don't have to, like,
Yeah.
in the finish line on your face. It's just, you want to keep going because it's a long game.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about too was, just making sound investments. If it
Yeah.
sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Like, go
Yeah.
the other way.
Well, and
E.T. Barnum is out there.
yes, and you also have to quantify or monetize your time,
Yeah.
because people always, well, I don't have the money to pay for a coach. Well, do you even have the time to write it? You're going to have to spend the time to design your cover, format your book, like that all costs money.
Yeah.
And so if there is a way to shorten that runway, it's probably a good investment. But you got to do your homework.
You have to. And this is why, I mean, all the years I've been involved with books, I haven't written a book yet, because I'm not going to write a book that's a piece of shit. The world has enough shitty books.
Yeah, they're all, and they're not all written by AI either.
Yeah, I'm going to write it when the time is right, and when I have the time and space to do it properly, when I have the money to invest properly.
Yep.
Because when that book comes out, I want it to be a head snapper, because
Absolutely.
it's going to include a life.
Right. Well, and that starts with the cover.
Yeah.
That was something, as an author, I made that decision, as a self-publishing author, I should say. I made that decision early on. My covers cost close to $1,000 to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They make people stop in their tracks.
People do buy a book by the cover.
Absolutely. And they will definitely stop. Yep.
One of my best friends is a graphic designer. And she worked for Chronicle for many years. And her dad is one of the most famous graphic designers in the world. He, did logos for the Guggenheim Museum and NYU, things like that. So it's in her blood. She's doing my book cover when my book comes out.
Amazing. Amazing. Yes. Yes, because you want it to, I always say that the cover should be the visual story. Like, what's inside the book is what you're going to experience on the cover. That's why it's a head snapper. But it also has to have fantastic colors. The imagery has to relate. It has to stand out.
Yeah.
And but it all has meaning and value. And everything about my book covers is absolutely 100% related. There is nothing throwaway at all. And it's just so fun. It's so fun.
And I think the other part with this too is when a book is done properly and it's marketed properly, and there's real clarity about what the role of this book is in your life, in your business, for others, it's something that has longevity. And when you're in this designing phase and this writing phase, I think you have to view everything as an investment instead of a cost, because it's going to pay back over time.
Absolutely.
And you can't look for you can't cut corners. I mean, when I work with authors, if they're not willing to invest in a proper book cover, proper
Yeah.
editing, and a good book layout, I won't work with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have to look at what else you want from this book too. You're not going to make your money back in book sales
No,
for the first
no, no.
5 years if you even stay in it that long.
Yeah.
But because it's a long game, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And that's why so many people get burnt out because they think, well, I released my book a year ago, I haven't made my money back. Well, where else do you foresee this book helping? And that's where the vision and the strategy comes in. I love what you said about clarity too, because if you're just writing to write a story, great, but maybe don't expect that you're going to be a bestseller.
Yeah, or start a Substack, you
Or,
know?
yeah, or define for yourself what bestseller means. That is the beauty of self-publishing and independent publishing, hybrid publishing, is that you get to determine what success means. You
Yeah,
should. That is not something that you should, in this day and age, in 2026, that you should let someone else define for you. But that's
amen.
also that's an emotional journey too. That requires a lot of healing. So
It does, and you know, we've been conditioned to believe online is easy. We've been conditioned to think it shouldn't cost anything,
right.
but that's not true.
No.
That's not true at all. And you know, there's just so much room here for um, bringing valuable insights, I should say,
Yeah.
to authors because it's a whole brand of business that just does not get enough light.
Yeah.
And there were if there
Yeah.
was one thing that you would want everybody to know who was embarking on writing their first book and had absolutely no clue, what would be that thing?
Um, well, at the risk of sounding redundant, which I hate to do.
All right, then give me two.
Yeah.
Give me the redundant and give me the one out of left field.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, first and foremost is reasonable expectations. Understand the process at least as much as you can, because you're not going to understand it until you're in it. But
Mhm.
understand the process as much as possible. Um, the craft will come as you write. Your voice will come as you write. You can take as many. I mean, Sue Monk Kidd talks about this in her book. You can take as many writing courses as you want, but it only comes in working through it. And then remember that the most powerful part of this journey for you is going to be the community you build as you do this. Because you do not want to do this alone, and you don't have to. Guess what? Stephen King never did his stuff alone. Never. Never. He had a team. When he got to a point where he was publishing, he had a team. And it is up to you to build that team and learn those lessons. And oh my God, you're going to make mistakes. Just accept the fact that you are going to screw up and it's all going to be okay.
Mhm.
So trust the process. You won't always enjoy it, but build that community that can help you keep going until you reach that first level of success that you want, and then keep going past that. Keep redefining, keep revolving. Trust the process that is always evolving.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I truly love about working with authors is you meet some of the most incredible people.
Yeah.
They're involved in the book world.
Yeah.
Caring, smart, clever, funny, sarcastic, all the good things.
Yes. Yes. And you never know where a connection is going to lead
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
You never know.
yeah.
I'm working with the most incredible people now that I met a year and a half ago. And
Mhm.
when the timing was right,
They show up.
yep,
Yeah,
they start clicking.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a journey, isn't it?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you've dropped a lot here.
I know.
I like to end these with a wisdom bomb, and you've already given, you know, I had to ask you that. But what's something small and actionable people can take with them to um, be more successful in their in their journey as an author?
Define what that means for you at this stage today, in 90 days, in 6 months. Where do you hope to be? You may get there, you may not, but at least you're on a journey, and you
Mm-hmm.
may exceed your wildest expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to believe in yourself and believe in that vision that you have for this story and the stories that will come, because no one writes one book. No one writes one book. There's no such thing as a one-hit wonder in publishing.
That's it right there. That's the one I was looking for.
Oh, good. I'm glad I came through. Yeah.
On that note, I'm
Yeah.
writing that down. Oh, okay, so everybody connect with Amy W. Vogel, and she is your book doula. And don't do this alone. Get help. She'll connect you with the right people. She'll make sure that you're on the right track. She will make sure you've got one foot in front of the other. And there are so many ways to get it wrong, but there's even more ways to get it right.
100%.
Yeah. So thank you, Amy. Thank you for
Thank
spending a
you.
little time today. And we will be back next week with more. We've got interviews booked all the way through October.
Wow.
It's
Good
exciting.
times. Good
Yeah,
time.
good times. Lots of great women coming to the airwaves here. So connect with Amy if you've got questions, comments, ideas in the watching replays. Just tag us. We'll come back and we will answer your questions and get into conversation. So share your books, share your book covers. Amy wants to see them.
Absolutely.
And have a great Wednesday, everybody.